Welcome to episode 3 of 5 Minutes of Wokeness, where we take about 5 minutes to talk about social justice issues and spread wokeness. Almost inevitably, as soon as Black people start discussing the ways that institutionalized racism has had a negative impact on our lives, the phrase Black on Black crime comes out. Our complaints about the extrajudicial killing that we're facing at the hands of law enforcement are met with questions about why we as a race are not working enough to end Black on Black crime. There are people who cite the murder rate in Chicago as evidence that Black lives don't matter to Black people unless that death comes at the hands of a white police officer. These people aren't putting forth the question as a means to work towards ending violence. No, what they're doing is ignoring the effects of society and de facto segregation on the levels of intra-racial violence, as well as attempting to shift the blame back onto Black people by essentially saying that if we don't care enough about our own lives, we shouldn't expect others to care about them either. So let's consider the origins of the phrase Black on Black crime. Originally, it was part of the narrative the Chicago Tribune and Jesse Jackson used to chastise the law enforcement system for not valuing the lives of other Black people by tending to have higher sentences meted out when the victim of a crime was white versus when they were Black. Within a few years, the phrase morphed into a chastisement of Black people in general. When you break out crimes committed by Black people from general crime statistics, it's problematic because it creates an unfounded illusion that there's something especially noteworthy about crimes committed by Black people as compared to crimes committed by non-Blacks. Some facts to contemplate. The results of segregationist policies still have effects to this day. De jure segregation, or segregation by law, led to things like redlining, where people of color were restricted to certain neighborhoods because banks would refuse to give them loans for houses outside very specific property lines drawn in red around those neighborhoods. What this means is that through de facto segregation, or segregation in fact, most people are going to be surrounded by people who share their racial background. Consider your own life. Of the people who you'd expect to be invited to their wedding, how many of those people are a different race than you? How many people in your last 5 to 10 phone calls or texts were of the same race as you? Though de jure segregation is not the law of the land anymore, it doesn't mean that de facto segregation has ended either. Why does segregation matter? Because intra-racial violence is generally going to be much higher than interracial violence due to simple proximity and the fact that most people are killed by someone they know. In 2014, just over 82% of white people were killed by other white people. In addition, the Bureau of Justice has also noted that poor urban Blacks had a similar, actually lower, rate of crime to poor urban whites. These issues have not given rise to the same hand-wringing about white-on-white crime, because it's just simply considered crime. One of the things that I find especially interesting with all the discussions of ending Black-on-Black crime is the lack of discussion about the organizations that are in the Black community already working to actively decrease or end violence in our neighborhoods. More than likely, if I ask you to name a group that's working to decrease neighborhood violence, you're going to answer the police. This is creating the assumption that in order for Black people to combat violence in their community, they must join the overwhelmingly white police force to do so. Black representation on the police force, though not too far removed from actual demographics like countrywide, being 12% of the police force and 13% of the population, it's not especially high considering the amount of policing that happens in minority neighborhoods. In many cases, the percentage of police who are white are vastly out of step with the constituencies policed, sometimes as high as 70 to 76% in places like Houston, Cleveland, and St. Louis. Black people, though, have had organizations for years working to increase peaceableness in Black neighborhoods. Organizations such as Mothers in Charge, the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition, Mothers Against Senseless Killing, and Save Our Streets have been working for years to eradicate violence. Assata's daughters protested the killing of Tyshawn Lee, a 9-year-old girl in Chicago, killed in gang violence crossfire. These organizations are out there doing the work. They're just not getting the credit for it. Come back on Thursday as we discuss respectability politics and how that affects the narratives surrounding the lives of Black people as well. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you then. Bye.